Uh, Main idea of the live. Really, I want to really just touch on this whole Jaron Ennis Vergil Ortiz thing because both these guys are playing the blame game. I've seen fan bases of both fighters pointing the fingers, and it really it goes back to what I've said for a long time about at least like the last 4 or 5 months, not a long time, but the last 4 or 5 months. My point, my talking points about Vergil Ortiz and Jaron Ennis have been very consistent over the last 4 or 5 months. And I told you guys that Jaron Ennis is a spoon-fed, pampered fighter, and he's going very complacent. And his team really is that competent to begin with, right? That's why he's at where he's at. And then Vergil Ortiz, I mean, he's literally suing his promoter, and he let Rick Regan get in his ear and ruin what he had going for him. Because the reality is this: Vergil Ortiz hasn't been easy to deal with in his career, pulling out of fights, avoiding Xander Zayas, going to fight Madrimov. Now you got Rick Regan in the picture, so he hasn't really been the easiest guy to deal with either. And Golden Boy has stuck with him, and despite the fact that Vergil Ortiz has never ever touched a world title, he's become one of the biggest names in and around his weight, due in large part to the promotions of Golden Boy Promotions and DAZN and people like that. So I like watching both of them fight. I do think Vergil Ortiz and Jaron Ennis are both awesome fighters. That's why I talk about them so much, because I like watching them fight, and I want to see them fight more. But I love Vergil Ortiz and Jaron Ennis so much as fighters that I actually will tell the truth about Vergil Ortiz and Jaron Ennis, even if I don't want to, because I don't get no joy being honest and real about some of these fighters. It's not fun. People get up, you get a lot of negative energy and a lot of negative things thrown your way, and it gets annoying to deal with. But again, I have to be content to tell the truth. That is part of the job. That is part of what I signed up for. So that's what I'm going to do. So we'll get to that here in a second. We got a couple comments. Let me acknowledge the fine folks that are already here making their presence felt. Rebel Rico, shout out to you. Rebel Rico is in the building. Good to see you, champ, as always. Hawker Mustang says he's asking the question, who should you blame? Blame. I would definitely say blame both fighters. I think you blame both guys. You blame, from the Jaron Ennis side of things, you blame him for not taking the fight. And even though I didn't want to see it in Saudi Arabia, because I was very vocal about that. I thought this fight should be in America, but he was offered the fight with Vergil Ortiz in Saudi Arabia. It was there. It was a real offer. He turned it down. Turki Al-Sheikh himself exposed Jaron Ennis for wanting to take tune-ups and less money to fight these lesser guys, right? And he want to find the Angolan animal Usima Lima. So you have that. You have that. That's the Jaron Ennis side of things. The Vergil Ortiz side of things is really just Vergil letting Rick Regan get in his ear, and then trying to ask for this crazy amount of money to fight Jaron Ennis, and not being realistic about what his commercial value actually is at this present moment in time. You understand? So let's get into it, man. Let's go to screen share, guys. First talking point, guys. Just so you guys know, I got like 18 talking points. I got like 18 things I want to run through. Some will be shorter than others, some will be longer than others. But I got 18 things I got to go ahead and run through before this live is over. So we're going to do that here on True School Sports. So we'll start with the main event. What this live is about, what you guys came here for. Make sure you guys smash the like button, all 10 of you here. And let me know where you guys are watching from. And let me know what you think about Vergil Ortiz and Jaron Ennis. But talking point number one, Jaron Ennis and Vergil Ortiz lash out at each other, and they're playing the blame game for their big fight not happening over this whole Golden Boy lawsuit, right? So we'll go to screen share, because these are the tweets from yesterday. So you have first of all, it all starts with Jaron Ennis, right? It all starts with Jaron Ennis, and he says, so first of all, Jaron Ennis actually thinks he's saying something here, and he's not. So I'm gonna read you what he said. He stated the following, and I quote: "I did everything in my power to make this fight happen for the fans. I waited long enough and I stayed quiet through it all, and it looks like Vergil or his team really didn't want the fight. I came to his fight in his hometown, and I told him he was next. That was November. It's March, and still nothing. It's time to move on. 2-division champion next. I told y'all the truth was going to come to the light." End quote, right? So that's what Jaron Ennis has to say. Now, I actually responded to this tweet myself, and I'll highlight this for you guys, because it's in writing, it's there, and I'm standing on everything I said in my tweet. I told Jaron Ennis, right, or I tweeted Jaron Ennis, right? I stated the following, and I quote: All this could have been avoided by either, and I listed the options, by either A, accepting the Vergil fight when Turkey made the offer in late 2024 in Saudi Arabia, B, fighting Bakr Murtazalia for the IBF title instead of the Angolan animal Usima Lima, or C, staying at 147 like you said you would and fighting Brian Pillman Jr. in a unification fight. All right? That being said, I forgive Boots. All is forgiven. Go make great fights. That's what I said, right? So Boots played his role in this. Like, let's not make, like, a lot of people, especially the Boots fan base, the Boots brigade, like, they want to make Jaron Ennis to be out like he's some sort of Marvin Hagler. Like, yeah, the establishment's against him. Like, nah, man. Like, you got Eddie Hearn on your side. You got people that are behind you, the machine behind you. You have been complacent and complicit in your own shortcomings, you know, as far as getting those big fights, right? That's why like Andre Ward said, that's why Jaron Ennis is 35-0, and he really hasn't fought any like truly significant fights. And I know everybody wants to say, oh, BT, he fought Stanionis, but for most people out there, Stanionis was not a significant fight, even though Stanionis is a good fighter, and he was a top contender in the division or champion, you can say. He wasn't a guy that was active and knocking guys out and making noise. He was there. You know, he was there and they fought him and it was cool. And, you know, they put the Ring Magazine title on the line when it shouldn't have been. It should have been on the line when he fought Brian Pillman Jr., right? But that's neither here nor there. I've already beat that like a dead horse. That's Boots' role. Now, look, I'm a fair guy. To the Jaron Ennis fans, I think I just hate Boots. Let's go to Vergil now. So Vergil Ortiz says, and I quote, "Since nobody is smart enough to know how to read between the lines, and we actually try to make the fight happen despite all the ongoing legal issues, I'll spell it out for you and everybody else. A lot of y'all must have missed out on critical thinking time in school," right? So the reason why, so to go to Vergil, right? Now, Vergil Ortiz, I've followed him for a long time. I've met him once in real life. I know a lot of people in the Texas area that have been around him in the boxing scene. So, you know, I know Vergil Ortiz is a very hardworking fighter. I know Vergil Ortiz is he's one of the fighters that, you know, I feel kids should look up to in terms of work ethic and working hard and how you carry yourself. He's one of those kind of guys. There's nothing bad I can say about Vergil Ortiz's character, right? However, he has played a role in why we're here, because Rick Marigan, who, you know, he's played a role in this because Rick Marigan has wanted crazy amounts of money to fight Jaron Ennis, and Vergil Ortiz never had one problem with Oscar De La Hoya, and he even said before the Erickson Lubin fight. I remember that before the Erickson Lubin fight, Vergil Ortiz stated himself that Oscar was doing his job. Oscar's done everything right by him, and all of a sudden, now it's an issue, right? And people got mad at me when I made my video about how Vergil Ortiz is wrong and how they try to cut Oscar De La Hoya out of the deal when Oscar has a contract with them with Golden Boy Promotions, and they were like, "Oh, BT, well you didn't read the paperwork. Golden Boy Promotions was supposed to offer him more than just the Jaron Ennis fight." Yeah, that's true, but guess what, guys? Golden Boy Promotions, they're subservient to DAZN, and DAZN has already came out and stated that they don't want to see Vergil Ortiz versus nobody else. They want that Boots fight. They had the MGM Grand on hold. They had plans to make that fight here in Vegas. So, yeah, they could have offered him other names. They could have said, Vergil, go fight Pavel Soslin. Go fight Israel Madrimov. Go fight Brandon Adams or whatever the case may be. But DAZN was not going to approve it. And DAZN is the one that is bankrolling Golden Boy Promotions this money. They're the ones that really hold the power on the chessboard, right? So sure, yeah, you could say maybe the contract might have been breached in that regard. But if that is your issue, you don't take it up with Golden Boy Promotions. Take it up with DAZN and get Oscar and the executives at DAZN in a room on a conference call and get on one accord. You understand that? Vergil Ortiz has never had one singular problem in terms of him and Golden Boy Promotions at all once in his career until it came time to make this Boots fight. And Rick Marigan's talking about, you know, they want to fight Earl Spence, and Oscar talking about they want to fight Earl Spence at Cowboy Stadium. So I think really I'm not taking a side here. I've been telling you guys for a while. I've been telling you guys for the last 4 or 5 months that Vergil Ortiz and Jaron Ennis, for as talented as they are, and for as much I love watching both of them fight, they are both right now at this stage on this fine day of March 14th, 12:38 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. They are both chronic underachievers. They are both overrated. Their hype and what the perception is far supersedes what they've actually accomplished in the ring. Doesn't mean they're not good. Doesn't mean they're not awesome fighters. I think they're awesome fighters, but they're not really. They're not what they're cracked up to be right now. And like I said, this is what happens when I feel like you put all this hype on fighters too early. And I raise my hand because I've said a lot of positive things about both these guys over the years, and it's like, man, you guys are getting paid a lot of money. You guys have both made good money in your careers, fighting guys that you're supposed to beat. Like Vergil got to head. Like I'm just gonna keep it real with you guys. Vergil Ortiz had the opportunity to headline in his hometown against a shot to pieces Erickson Lubin, and a lot of you guys got up in my comment section and you guys are trying to tell me about Erickson Lubin. Guys, I'm from Florida. I've been on the Florida boxing scene for the better part of a decade plus now. I know what the deal is with Erickson Lubin. I've always known what the deal is with Erickson Lubin, and I told you what that fight was, and a lot of y'all didn't like it. And a lot of y'all found out. So to me, I thought it was a cherry pick when the fight got made, and I was very bullish about that opinion, and I was proven correct. And then the Jaron Ennis fought Usima Lima, right? We know about that. So like, yeah, these guys get paid lots of money. These guys have gotten a lot of hype over the years, and they're not doing what they're supposed to do. And guess what, guys? You know what the sad part is? The sad part is that a lot of you people are complaining about Xander Zayas and how Xander didn't fight this guy and Xander didn't fight that guy. If Xander Zayas goes undisputed, do you know who's the most responsible for that? Apart from Peter Khan and Top Rank and the guys that are part of his team, I'm gonna say it's Vergil Ortiz and Jaron Ennis, because let's be real, I like Xander, but I'm not biased. Vergil Ortiz and Jaron Ennis are big threats to Xander Zayas. They're big threats to anybody. These guys are very good fighters. They're very talented. They're awesome, right? And the fact that these guys continue to make the kind of moves to shoot themselves in the foot and stall out their own careers because they're listening to people in their dick riding fan bases, that's on them. So if Xander goes undisputed this year, I don't want to hear about he didn't fight Vergil Ortiz or Jaron Ennis. They did it to themselves. And I know, and before I read my comments, I already know you guys are gonna say, well, BT, Jaron Ennis is Xander's mandatory challenger, and you would be correct because he's the interim champion. However, you guys know the deal. Unifications trump mandatories, right? And so if Peter Khan, Top Rank, and the fine folks there can strike up deals with the likes of Sebastian Fundora and Josh Kelly at some point, that's priority over Jaron Ennis, because Jaron Ennis is not a world champion, right? And unfortunately for Boots, he's the WBA interim champion. And look, like I know plenty of people at the WBA. I know Gilberto Mendoza. I know the guy Julio, who's the president of the rankings committee. But like nobody puts the key in my bag. I say what I want to say. Like the WBA, they make things up as they go. So if they want to have Xander do something else, they're gonna do it. They're probably the loosest when it comes to their own rules, even more than the WBC. So, sorry. It is what it is. Like Boots put himself here, right? Boots put himself here, and Vergil Ortiz also put himself here, where he's now gonna be probably in litigation for the better part of a year and some change. And another thing about Vergil, right? Vergil really probably shouldn't even be an undefeated fighter right now, because when he fought Sergey Boychuk on that fateful night of what was it, August 10th, 2024, probably my favorite day in the history of boxing so far. A lot of people, myself included, thought that Boychuk beat him, and so he's lucky to even be undefeated and have his own for keeping it all the way real. And before I get to the comments, because I know I probably got some good ones, I want to give a shout out to this guy right here. I don't even know this dude. Well, I do actually. He follows me. But he said right here, he said, man, you MF, I'm tired of you and Boots. This fight should have been done already. At this point, it doesn't matter about who's ducking who. Neither one of y'all is doing enough. Just blaming each other for the fight not happening. MFs are tired. If y'all not for the fight, shut all the extra shit up respectfully. And I'm with him. I'm with him. And I would like more boxing fans to join me in reality that it is not Vergil Ortiz's fault. It is not Jaron Ennis's fault. It is not Golden Boy's fault. It is not Matchroom's fault. It's everybody's fault. It's everybody's fault. That's why the fight ain't happening. So that's my thoughts on Vergil. in Boots and them playing the blame game. I know Rick Marie had a tweet that I don't even feel like pulling up right now. He was talking about numbers and things of that nature. But that's my thoughts on Vergil and Boots. So I will leave it right there. Let me see. I got 11 comments. Shout out to you guys here. I mean, Clarissa Pedro says, hot take. I don't blame either fighter. I blame boxing. Nah, you gotta blame both fighters. Both fighters. I mean, to each their own, but you gotta blame both fighters. You gotta blame Boots for not taking the fight when it was presented to him in late 2024, and you gotta blame Vergil for all of a sudden, just because Rick Regan got in his ear, having this change of heart. Bro, y'all will say Vergil Ortiz wasn't like that when he beats him because Vergil is the same come forward pressure fighter. I don't think Vergil Ortiz is just a come forward pressure fighter. I think Vergil Ortiz has one of the best power jabs in the sport. I think there's more dimensions to Vergil than a lot of you guys want to give him credit for. I think he's a very good fighter, and if Jaron Ennis were to beat him, I'm not going to downplay the win. I would give Jaron Ennis a lot of credit for beating Vergil Ortiz because Vergil Ortiz is a very good fighter, Nah, I'm not gonna go that far. I'm not gonna go that far with saying he's not an elite fighter. He's an elite fighter. What a great fight! And you know what? I haven't had a chance to watch it because when he was fighting, when Najee Lopez was fighting tonight, I went for a run. I was getting that road work in with the champ. With Angelo Leo and getting ready for the real fight in May. But I'm very proud of Najee. Najee did his thing. From the highlights I've seen, and passed another test and answered some real questions, and he looks like he's ready for the top guys in the division. So respect to Najee Lopez. He says, Hawker Mustang says, I got a good idea. Let's send Boots and Vergil back to ProBox. It really feels like that's the move. Send them back to ProBox and make the fight. As Gary Jonas says, go make their fight economically viable. And have them fight in Plant City at the White Sands, and we'll be all right. We'll be all right. Eddie Hearn will not make the Boots versus Kelly fight, then he's a liar. I agree. Like if you're Eddie Hearn, right? So now the question just can't be about Vergil and Boots. It's clear that from the Boots side of things, you cannot sit here and wait and make a career about Vergil. You got to actually go ahead. And you got to be proactive and stay active and become a champion, right? Now, to Boots' credit, and Josh Kelly as well, they had a signed contract to fight each other if Kelly beat Bakram, which Kelly, to his credit, did beat Bakram. So it's really on Eddie Hearn. He's got both fighters. There's no reason the fight shouldn't happen. If you're a Jaron Ennis fan and they don't make Josh Kelly versus Jaron Ennis next, you have every right in the world to be mad because, look, Josh Kelly, it looked like for a little bit of time there that they were going to do the Xander Zayas fight, and they're not doing the Xander Zayas fight. You understand? So since the Xander Zayas fight isn't happening, that's all the more reason why the Josh Kelly Jaron Ennis fight should happen. So I agree with that.